Hendrika Gerritsen. Hendrika Jacoba Kiky Gerritsen-Heinsius, 12 April 1920 27 December 1990, was recognized by Vashem as righteous among the nations on 15 September 1989 and was also awarded the Verzetsherdenkingskruis Resistance Memorial Cross by the Dutch government. A member of the Dutch resistance who actively helped Dutch men and women escape Nazi persecution, she survived imprisonment at 3 Nazi concentration camps, Herzogenbusch, Vught in the Netherlands and Ravensbrück and Dachau in Germany, as well as the harsh working conditions of the Munich-Giesing satellite camp known as Agfa-Commando, becoming one of those liberated from Dachau at the end of April 1945. She was known to family and friends as Kiky. Formative years. Born in Amsterdam, Netherlands on 12 April 1921, her birth name was Hendrika Jacoba Heinsius. Following her marriage to Piet Gerritsen, she became Hendrika Jacoba Gerritsen-Heinsius. World War Roman II. Residing alone in Amsterdam and employed at that city's famed department store, the Bijenkorf, during the opening years of World War Roman II, Kiky Heinsius was intimately acquainted with the dangers faced by Jewish men, women and children. Within the span of just a few months, 2 of her friends were targeted by Nazi officials in the Netherlands. Following the June 1941 death of her closest friend, Rudolf Richter, at the Mauthausen concentration camp, her movements were monitored after she tried to intervene on behalf of another friend, Leos Vught, who had been arrested, interrogated and deported to Westerbork. Despite the threat to her personal security, she then actively intervened on behalf of a third individual, Siegfried Goldstein, a Jewish labor camp fugitive who had been befriended by her co-worker Anna Moss. Hiding him at her home in early 1943, according to Vashem, Kiky Heinsius stole Russian cards from her employer to provide for him before helping him locate and move to a safer hideout. She then also relocated, moving to a larger apartment with a hiding place, took in Judith Franzmann, an acquaintance of Siegfried, and persuaded another friend to help secure extra Russian cards. Approached by members of the Amsterdam resistance, she was soon making frequent trips to Dren to pick up forged papers for people in hiding while helping to transport others to more secure locations. When her apartment was raided on 2 February 1944, both she and Goldstein were captured. According to Yad Vashem, Sieg perished somewhere in Central Europe in June 1944 while Kiky was sent to Herzogenbusch, Ravensbrück and a subcamp of Dachau, from where she was liberated on 30 April 1945. The Verzets Museum in Amsterdam places a date of her arrival at Dachau as 15 October 1944, while a list of prisoners being transported to that camp in 1944 noted that her inmate number there would be 123,202. Records preserved from the concentration camp at Dachau also provide further confirmation of many of her vital statistics, including that her name was Hendrika Heinsius, that her inmate number was 123,202, that she had been born in Amsterdam on 12 April 1921, and that she had been sent from Ravensbrück to Dachau. However, these records also state that she did not arrive at Dachau until 12 November 1944. In addition, the Dachau records confirmed that she had been designated by Nazi officials as a Schutzhäftling from the Netherlands. Translated roughly as protective custody prisoner, the term Schutzhäftling was a euphemism used by Nazis to describe political prisoners or others they deemed to be threats to the Third Reich or otherwise undesirable, many of whom were detained without trial. Having survived imprisonment at both Ravensbrück and Dachau, according to Dachau's records, she was finally liberated from that camp with her fellow prisoners on 30 April 1945. Prison life at Agfa-Commando. According to Jack van Ommen, author of The Massmaker's Daughters, his mother, Rennie van Ommen de Vries, and Hendrika Gerritsen were 2 of the women who performed forced labor at Agfa-Commando, which was a satellite camp of Dachau, located at Munich-Giesing, roughly 14 miles from the Dachau main camp. Both women had been members of the Dutch resistance and had also been imprisoned at the Nazis' Herzogenbusch, Vught and Ravensbrück concentration camps prior to their 15 October 1944 transfer to Agfa with a group of former resistance members and other Dutch women. Beginning each day with a prisoner count at 50 in the morning, They were marched to the plant, which was part of the vast network of factories operated by IG Farben. Ordered to assemble ignition timers for Nazi weapons, including artillery ammunition, bombs, and Vught and Vught rockets, they sabotaged production efforts whenever possible. At the end of each workday at 6:00 p.m., they were marched back to Munich-Giesing, where they slept 607 to a room in a bombed-out apartment block. Surrounded by a high barbed wire fence, the substandard housing was monitored by guards in watchtowers at each of the block's 4 corners. Prisoners strike at Agfa-Commando. The prisoners at Dachau and its subcamps were often at risk from Allied bombing, which targeted factories and railroads in and around Munich more than 70 times over a 5-year period in order to destroy or at least disrupt and delay armament production. Despite the danger, the prisoners at these facilities were not permitted to seek shelter in bunkers, according to the Bavarian House of History. As a result, many lived in constant fear of air raids. Consequently, Van Ommen writes, the 40-mile road between Dachau and Agfa was impassable by January 1945, preventing food and other supplies from being delivered. As salt and other staples ran out, the factory's managers began watering down prisoners' suppressions while at the same time trying to raise the production quotas. Many women, malnourished and overworked, fell ill with typhoid fever, tuberculosis and other diseases, but fought to remain at Agfa as long as possible, since being sent to the overcrowded hospital at Dachau would likely result in their deaths. It was at this point, says the Bavarian House of History, that the Dutch prisoners stopped working, even though this was regarded as sabotage and was punished by death. Hendrika Gerritsen, when penning her memoir later in life, observed, "What finally gave the decisive effect on 12 January 1945, I do not really remember. Shortly after the lunch break, the work was suddenly put down in front of the hall. No, we do not want to work any more, we are hungry." Ella Lingens, one of the women who was later held partially responsible for the strike, stated that the prisoner revolt started when one woman turned off the conveyor belt and crossed arms, and when the commandant, completely enraged, asked why she wasn't working, was told, "Because we don't want it anymore." Afterward, Mary Vaders, one of the Dutch prisoners, was fingered as the instigator by one of the other nationals in the camp and sent to the bunker in the Dachau concentration camp, but, due to fortunate circumstances, the threatened execution was never carried out. According to Van Ommen, the other strike participants were punished with either standing in formation in the courtyard at Agfa. 3 months later, the factory was shut down. Hendrika Gerritsen's recollections about her time at Agfa-Commando and other Nazi concentration camps continue to be shared through special events across the Netherlands and Germany, including readings of her unpublished memoir, The World Was White, and the 2017 exhibition of Alexander Steeg's Kamer, a sculpture dedicated to the memory of the approximately 554 labourers of the Giesing satellite camp Agfa-Kamerauweg. Following a brief illness, Hendrika Gerritsen-Heinsius died in Amsterdam on 27 December 1990. Members of the community were given the opportunity to bid farewell to her at the Oostdorp Event Centre in Amsterdam on 31 December 1990 and 2 January 1991. Her cremation ceremony was then held later in the day on 2 January at the Crematorium Westgaard in Amsterdam's Memorial Park Westgaard. Awards. Hendrika Gerritsen was honoured nationally and internationally for her work with the Dutch resistance during World War II. On 15 September 1989, she was awarded the title of Righteous Among the Nations by Yad Vashem, and her name was inscribed on the far right panel of the Netherlands wall, 13th name from the bottom, in the Garden of the Righteous Among the Nations, which is located on the Mount of Remembrance in Jerusalem, Israel. The organization's website explains the significance of the honor as follows. Rescue of Jews took many forms and required varying degrees of involvement and self-sacrifice. The title of the righteous is reserved for the smaller group of those who actively risked their lives or their liberty for the express purpose of saving Jews from persecution and murder. There is a wider circle of men and women who assisted the persecuted in the darkest hour of Jewish history, but whose help did not involve the taking of risks. These humane people have our greatest appreciation, and their deeds are being documented by us. Nevertheless, even though their aid was crucial to the Jews' survival, in the absence of risk, They do not qualify for recognition within the framework of the Righteous Program. Hendrika Gerritsen was also awarded the Verzetsherdenkingskruis Resistance Memorial Cross by the Dutch government. According to Eric Muller, who has been researching and writing about Dutch medals for the Orders and Medals Research Society, the cross was awarded to members of the Dutch underground movement for active resistance to the enemy and is inscribed with the words, "The tyranny vote driven to get rid of tyranny." The photograph at right in this section is a general image provided here to illustrate what Gerritsen's Resistance Memorial Cross would have looked like. External resources. Database of Righteous Among the Nations online. Jerusalem, Yad Vashem. La Group Peter. The Legacy of Nazi Occupation, Patriotic Memory and National Recovery in Western Europe, 1945-1965 pp. 74-77. Cambridge, Cambridge University Press, 2000. Liberation of Dachau. Washington, D.C. United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Moore, Steve and Peter Lende. Dachau Concentration Camp Records Online Database. Righteous Among the Nations Explanation of the Honor and Criteria for Consideration. Jerusalem, Yad Vashem. Van Ormen, January Het Agfa-Commando the Agfa-Commando. Reenbeck near Hamburg. Retrieved 6 April 2018. Category Dutch Righteous Among the Nations Category Recipients of the Resistance Memorial Cross Category Assistance Members from Amsterdam Category Dachau Concentration Camp Survivors Category Ravensbrück Concentration Camp Survivors Category Women in War in the Netherlands Category 1921 Births Category 1990 Deaths Category Female Resistance Members of World War Roman II Category 20th Century Dutch Women